Michael Popok, Legal AF. The dust is settling on this past Supreme Court term. I've been able to catch my breath, and I want to do a little bit of an analysis of what's going on. Numbers to remember: 3, 3, and 3, and 5 to 4. Let me explain. If Hillary Clinton had won the election, this would be a 6-3 liberal progressive Supreme Court. Think about that. 6-3 liberal progressive Supreme Court instead of 6-3 conservative, ultra-conservative, and MAGA Supreme Court, and you see the rulings that have happened as a result. That means the November election is important, not just because you like or don't like a debate performance. It has to do with the United States Supreme Court and its rulings over the next 10, 15, and 20 years, because appointees to the United States Supreme Court usually come in at around age 50, and they stay till around age 80, meaning it's going to be at least 2 to 3 generations that are going to be impacted and affected by the rulings of this Supreme Court. Is it going to be conservative? Is it going to be progressive? Is it going to be down the middle centrist? Which is it, America? Right now, it is obvious. 2 major things happened that we were able to spot during this last term that went from October until just the last drop of the immunity decision in July. 2 developments that we will continue to keep an eye on and mean something to average Americans. 1, there is a centrist bloc in the middle of the court. It is right of center, but it is centrist. It is John Roberts. It is Kavanaugh, and it is Amy Coney Barrett, who is quickly becoming a potential swing vote. When she votes with the progressives on the left, those decisions and those opinions rule. When she rules with the ultra right-wing MAGA right, which is Alito, Thomas, and now Gorsuch can be comfortably categorized as MAGA right, then those opinions become the law. So that block in the middle, Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, are the ones to watch in the next term and going forward over the next 20 or 30 years. We used to call the swing vote, we used to call the court the Kennedy court, because Kennedy, before he retired, voted more with the majority left or right than any other justice. If you didn't get Kennedy's vote, you didn't get your decision adopted as the majority decision of the court. Now, we've got a 3-headed monster in the middle of right conservative, Roberts, Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, who's starting to demonstrate, Amy Coney Barrett, an intellectual independence from the MAGA right wing. Doesn't mean she doesn't, by and large, side with the Federalist Society approach to jurisprudence. But when she wants to be independent, she'll side with the left or the progressive side of that court. Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Kagan. And when she does, their opinions become the majority opinions. Watch Amy Coney Barrett in the future. Watch Gorsuch, who I already said in prior hot takes and on Legal AF, has sided with Alito and Thomas to form a right-wing MAGA Supreme Court bloc time and time again this past term. Let's back up for a minute. How do we get here? And what can happen in the future? Let's start with the future, because I like to be hopeful on 4th of July weekend at Legal AF. Some people say it's Popokium, it's hopium, but I think I'm calling it right down the middle in the way I believe this will turn out. If the election goes according to plan and the will of the people is respected and Joe Biden, his administration, Kamala Harris, all get swept back into office, Joe Biden will have the opportunity, likely, to replace 2 of the Supreme Court justices, right? Alito is 74 years old. Thomas is 76 years old. Many of their colleagues will have retired by this point, natural causes or retirement. That means there'll be 2 openings. That means it is likely, more likely than not, that during the next Biden administration, he could turn that court from 6-3 to 5-4 on the liberal progressive side. Let me repeat. If you don't like what 6-3 MAGA Supreme Court, right of center, right of fascism looks like on the United States Supreme Court, vote blue on November the 5th, if for no other reason than that. Administrations come and go. Presidents can only serve 2 terms at most. Supreme Courts is the gift or the nightmare that keeps on giving for 20, 30 years plus into the future. Look down at your grandchildren, look down at your children, or look across the table and tell them at the end in history you did the right thing. And that the arch of history bends towards justice and that you were on that right side in voting for it. Don't do the hand-wringing about, another debate performance. Do the hand-wringing about justice. Get to a 5-4 liberal-oriented majority when the two openings happen. Think of the consequences if they don't. If Trump gets back in and Alito and Thomas retire, it'll just cement 6-3 for the foreseeable future. 20 years of 6-3 super MAGA majority right-wing Federalist Society driven policy. And if people didn't think that the United States Supreme Court touches their daily lives, so what does it matter? I think we just saw from this last term that it does. Women's rights, reproductive rights, Second Amendment rights, the expansion of Second Amendment rights, treating unborn fetuses with greater rights than an actually born woman in this country, giving more rights to the Second Amendment than the First Amendment, and tearing down the separation of church and state. Where does that come from? That is a playbook. All we have watched is as soon as they got the numbers, the Federalist Society members, right of center and right of fascism, to be frank. I'm looking at you, Amy Coney Barrett, Roberts, and Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas. They had a checklist coming in. It was developed by the Federalist Society, by Leonard Leo, by McConnell, by others. They had a 5-point checklist. They wanted, if they ever got the numbers, what they were going to do on a United States Supreme Court. They say they're not judicial activists. They say they don't make policy. Let me run it down for you. Since the time that Alito was the spiritual leader of the right wing of the court, when he was in the minority, these were the 5 different principles they wanted to overturn or reestablish once they got the numbers. They wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade. They accomplished that 2 years ago with the Dobbs decision. They wanted to expand the Second Amendment and make it a personal right that's independent from the introductory phrase of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, that it was a right of everyone to bear arms in their home and for protection, and they went further using historical precedent to eliminate all appropriate, logical, reasonable regulation of Second Amendment gun rights. If it didn't exist in the 1780s or the 1800s as a regulation against gun rights, it wouldn't exist now, despite the fact that many of our Americans, look around your table, didn't have rights during that same period about guns. Women, Black Americans, then slaves or newly freed slaves. Doesn't matter. No historical context for the Supreme Court. That was 2. Second Amendment expansion and affirmative action. Oh, yes. That has been a rallying cry for the Federalist Society people, white and black, forever, including Clarence Thomas, who benefited from affirmative action and admits that he did. 4 was to separate the wall between church and state. They never liked the Establishment Clause. They never liked any of the appropriate policies that recognize that under the Establishment Clause, U.S. government shouldn't be funding religious education, shouldn't be funding religious expression, shouldn't allow religious expression on public land. No, to the Federalist Society and those members, they wanted to break down the wall of church and state. And we've been watching brick by brick at least 5 different major Supreme Court decisions have eliminated church and state barriers completely. You want to pray at midfield as a public high school football coach and compel your football team to do prayer stretches or doing prayer during stretches? That's okay. You want to fly a flag on a government building of your religion? That's okay. You don't have a local parochial school, Catholic school, or whatever in your town? Public education, your tax dollars will pay for it. That's okay. Everything, prayer in school, that's okay. 10 Commandments on the doorway into a public school, that's fine. All that's fine. That they wanted to tear down the wall between church and state in a series of decisions that started 2 years ago, 3 years ago. When they got the numbers after Amy Coney Barrett joined the bench, they did it. And then they wanted to dismantle the what they saw was an out-of-control administrative state run by the executive branch. In other words, agency power to regulate in the areas of their expertise. So they got rid of something from 1984 called the Chevron decision. And the Chevron decision said that unless Congress has given clear direction in a statute, a law that they've passed, then we assume that Congress will defer to the experts, the scientific experts, the math experts, the economic experts, the physiological experts, the physics experts, whatever it is, in the agencies to make proper rulemaking, not to the Supreme Court. That is for a judge to decide, preferably a right-wing MAGA Federalist Society judge. So get rid of the administrative state. Get rid of the executive, shrink the executive power through agency function, but increase the power of the presidency and create an imperial presidency. And that's what we just saw with the immunity decision. That was just gravy. That was just a bonus. I do laundry a lot, but I wasn't a big fan of my old laundry detergent and how it makes my clothes feel and smell. This podcast is sponsored by Laundry Sauce. Laundry Sauce created the world's best-smelling laundry detergent in simple-to-use high-performance pods. Laundry Sauce has transformed the mundane task of doing laundry into a luxurious and exciting experience, so you don't have to dread laundry day anymore. Earlier this week, I just used the Australian sandalwood pods, and my clothes smell amazing. My wife thought I changed my cologne. So what's the secret sauce behind Laundry Sauce? They partnered with one of the top fragrance houses in the world, the same team behind many of your favorite designer scents. From Australian sandalwood to Egyptian rose to cyber pine with Laundry Sauce, laundry day will never smell the same again. Plus, they stripped away all the unnecessary ingredients and artificial dyes and maximize the hard-working, science-backed stain fighters and enzymes to ensure your favorite clothes come out looking brand new. Check out the reviews on their site. They are some of the funniest, most authentic reviews you'll ever read. Laundry Sauce was started back in 2021 by a team who were bored by the mundane scents in the detergent aisle, so they decided to make a product that was conscious, relevant, and innovative. And it's not just pods. Laundry Sauce makes scent boosters, dryer sheets, dryer balls, fabric softeners, and even candles too. Plus, if you aren't happy, send back Laundry Sauce for a full refund. No questions asked. Elevate your laundry with Laundry Sauce. Now is the time to experience Laundry Sauce. Head to laundrysauce.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout for 15% off. That's the best offer you'll find, but you must use my code legalaf for 15% off your order. One last time, that's laundrysauce.com/legalaf, promo code legalaf for 15% off. So we've got these 333 blocks. Bloomberg News just did a great outline about this. So I tip my hat to Noah Feldman in outlining it. I mean, we've been following closely the rise of Amy Coney Barrett as an independent, an independent right of center independent, but a centrist, and how she, throwing her votes one way or the other, is starting to shape the outcome in the court more so than the right wing. And Gorsuch having joined religiously with Alito and Thomas. So let me just give you some examples. When Amy Coney Barrett, who's becoming the ideological center of this court, when she sided with the progressives, we had the ruling that in Idaho, federal law, the Emergency Medical Procedures Law, EMTALA, would allow for abortions in the case of a medical emergency and the life of the mother was being threatened, even in a state where there was a near total ban on abortion. That's because Amy Coney Barrett joined with Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor. The mifepristone ruling. Amy Coney Barrett right behind that to make sure that women could still get medicated abortion safely through the FDA. The social media rulings that just recently came out, that social media platforms have First Amendment rights, just like the MeidasTouch network, and that they can decide what can and cannot be in terms of content on those platforms, and they can deplatform people. You can thank Amy Coney Barrett for joining the progressives related to that. The decision that people convicted or adjudged to be domestic violence abusers subject to restraining orders because of their violent past in Rahimi, that they shouldn't have guns. You can thank Amy Coney Barrett for joining together with the progressives on that one. And then when she wanted to become more right of center and join the right-wing MAGA, you got the following rulings: the immunity decision for Donald Trump and for the future, which is a playbook for a future despot, an out-of-control rogue president who's going to assert some sort of core function, official duty every time he acts in a criminal fashion. You can thank Amy Coney Barrett for that. The dismantling of the administrative state and the defanging of administrative agency power to regulate in the areas of their expertise. That is a ruling that's come out in Loper Bright versus Raimundo. That is Amy Coney Barrett. Bump stocks, which is a device, an aftermarket device that converts basically a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon that was used in the Las Vegas massacre, that I was present for, that I was in Vegas the night of, that killed over 60 people in Las Vegas that were at the Harvest Festival. You can thank Amy Coney Barrett for that. The dismantling of voting rights and the defanging of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, in order to stop gerrymandering and to disenfranchise minorities and Black and brown people in districts, in voting in congressional districts, Amy Coney Barrett. So what does that mean? Like, for me to just identify where the flags are on the course and how to ski the course, that's interesting. But let's go beyond that. How do we change the course going forward? And this is easy. This is the easiest hot take I'm going to do today. Vote blue. Vote blue like your life and liberty and justice and that of people that you love depend on it, because it does. Look, I don't blow smoke or sunshine. I'm not censored. I'm unfiltered. I'm here on the MeidasTouch Network for a reason: to defend democracy and our constitutional republic, because I love it so. I always have. Always have. You know, my major in college was politics, American government, and the presidency as a focus. This has mattered to me forever. And so in order for me to get this across to you, I'm going to make it very simple. I don't need to give you a voting card to put in your palm when you go into the polls, about who to vote for. It's very simple. Do you want a 5-4 liberal progressive block on the United States Supreme Court to undo the mess that was just done this past term, and to make sure and to ensure our values and our patriotic way of life is preserved for the next 20 years? Vote blue. If you don't care about that, and you're focused instead, you're not looking up, you're only looking down at the sidewalk, you're never going to get to the future. And if you don't care about that, and if a 6-3 super MAGA majority with Amy Coney Barrett as the swing vote going forward for the next 20 years is okay by you, then vote for the other person and the other guy. It's simple. I want to focus your attention on the importance of the United States Supreme Court. I told people this during Hillary Clinton's campaign and her failed campaign. And I remember people saying, well, I don't really like her. I don't like her. I don't like the marriage. I don't like what she's done. I think maybe she's slightly corrupt, whatever it would be. The email servers, a lot of hand wringing and whining that Democrats are known to do, more so than the other party. And I said to them, I really don't care if you like her or not. I really don't care if you want to go have dinner with her, if you want to go and visit her in Long Island, or spend time with her. She's not one of the people that you would have at your imaginary dinner party where you'd have Jesus and Charlie Chaplin and Albert Einstein sitting around a table. I really don't care. I said to them, focus on the United States Supreme Court and what could happen. And look what happened. Instead of a 6-3 progressive court making the decisions that you care about that matter, I have to report on a daily basis during the last term and prior to that about the Supreme Court dismantling our way of life and throwing out 40-year-old precedent, 50-year-old precedent, super precedent that they swore in their confirmation hearings they would never do because they've got the numbers, not because it's right, not because it makes any sense, not because it follows precedent or jurisprudence or stare decisis. None of it. Just because they had a checklist going in, a little crumpled piece of paper in the back of Clarence Thomas's pocket that's been there, and they would not stop until they checked all those boxes. And Lord knows what they'll do now that they've destroyed America in achieving all their checklists. Overturn Roe versus Wade, check. Second Amendment, check. Expansion of it. And affirmative action, check. Tear down the wall between church and state, check. Get rid of the administrative state and defang administrative agencies, their ability to regulate, check. Oh, and let's pump up and make up an imperial president to make an imbalanced three co-equal branches of government that is no longer. Not when one branch has unfettered, above the law power in its core constitutional functions and wherever it can call itself official conduct. You've just imbalanced the delicate balance established by the founding fathers and the framers when they set up this government. Now we're left with impeachment and conviction being the only way to check an out-of-control, rogue, criminal, murderous president. That's it. And then you got to hope that we're going to have the majority in the Senate to convict and remove that person, including for prior bad acts, under the high crimes and misdemeanor standard. I'm not trying to scare the crap out of you on 4th of July, but I want you to not only just go in and vote in November, I want you to bring 5 or 10 people with you. And I want you to do everything you can in your state. And if you live in one of the 5 battleground states, even better. Get people to register to vote. Those deadlines are coming up. Make sure you understand mail-in voting, early voting. Make sure you get a copy of that ballot and fill it out before you go in there. And make sure you not only vote at the top of the ticket, but down ballot. That's how important it is. But the only thing that matters to the Supreme Court in its selection is number one spot. Number one spot, Biden and Harris. That's it. That's all that history is going to look back on, Jan. You know, when you sit with your children and grandchildren, they say, well, did you support democracy? Did you vote for the murderous, rapist, defamer, fraudster? Or did you vote for the other person who had a body of work spanning 50 years in public service and did a great job in domestic and foreign policy during their first term? Which was it, mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, aunt, uncle, fill in the blank, sister, brother? Which was it? You are eventually going to have to answer to people in your lives. And I want to be able to say that I supported democracy and the constitutional republic that I love. We do this right here on the MeidasTouch Network. We do it on Legal AF. It's Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Now you know why we called it Legal AF 4 years ago, anticipating the world that we're in now. If you don't know why, join us, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, YouTube, and then every podcast platform you can think of. And so until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.